the Vice President of Sales at Zia Consulting, here to talk with you about Zia's Initial Consulting Engagement Packages, otherwise known as ICE, and we'll walk through today why that might be interesting to you. When we talk to our customers, we learn a lot that they are often struggling with where to start with working on Alfresco or Fsoft solutions. And we ultimately developed this prepackaged concept, these initial consulting engagements, to help address that. The challenges that we've heard from our customers are a few, and it's don't know where to start, or how to start. So this will help us address initiation and what that looks like. Afraid of spending too much money on services, so afraid of cost. Or perhaps seeing some sort of initial value add and return on investment in that initial expenditure. So getting some reduction in risk and initial ROI. One of the things that we've understood in our business of solutions integration is in implementing these projects in terms of size. So if you look at kind of our understanding of industry trends from the 90s through today, what we have experienced and seen are a sales cycle that's consultative. So you are working with your vendors, or we're working with our customers in a way that we try to solve everything right up front. Once again, those turned into very long conversations, and they can be highly expensive, not only just the amount of time necessary to actually work on a proposal, but ultimately you're building out what could be a very large commitment right up front without having a plan necessarily in place where you can show some quick value add to the business. There's this, perhaps you all experience these engagements with the big three, right? This concept of the major systems integrators in the world that come and implement massive scale projects with armies of consultants, touching every part of the business and perhaps grinding innovation to a halt. And then finally, having some ownership over the process. When you work with one of these other integrators, the bigger ones, or these consultative sales cycles, that tends to take away from participation from the client and their ability to actually own what it is they're engaging us in. So what we like to think about here as we approach solutions and deploying content management solutions, whether it's with our products, Alfresco and Fsoft that we resell, or working with those products, is what are you up against? What kind of decisions are you facing? So if you're the decision maker in the organization, you have really a handful of choices at your disposal. And so first of all, one of those options is literally do nothing. Don't make a decision. We wouldn't be having a discussion, of course, if that was a viable option, really, because you're looking at something else and therefore you're motivated to figure out a problem. However, perhaps that is a short-term appropriate answer for a business. Another option is figure it all out in the beginning, right? Do, in fact, the consultative sales cycle, so that you work through the big picture of your problems, you work through a complete and total understanding of what it is you're trying to solve, and build out a longer project plan. Or perhaps figure it out yourself, go it alone. And that might mean that you don't engage an integrator, you don't engage a reseller, you make a decision based on your understanding. I would tell you, of course, that you're missing out on an experience of best practices and in working with folks who do this every day for a living. So an alternative is, how do you make a choice? How do you know where to go? And we would like to suggest that you consider one of our initial consulting engagements projects. projects. And the way we do that is through a series of a series of options, and help you do some analysis around process and losing this. So we'll say, what is ICE? What are our initial consulting engagements? Well, they are, first of all, a process and discovery analysis. They are a technical solution analysis. And ultimately, they are a content roadmap. So what these give you are, in the process and discovery analysis phase, a detailed understanding of the business requirements that you're up against and what you are actually considering implementing to begin with. Why did we come together? This is us gaining collaboratively a detailed understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. Oftentimes, you know something about what you're trying to do, but you're grasping the details or perhaps not clear of things around the edge. And working with folks who do this every day helps you realize the additional things that weigh into embarking on an HCM deployment. So the process and discovery analysis helps clarify what the business is actually going to achieve. That is ultimately generates a requirements analysis document as an outcome that is used to fill a technical solution analysis. So the organization can then engage us on a secondary path that says, okay, great, I understand what I'm trying to do, now what? How do I actually embark on this road of implementing something? Who can help me? Can I do this by myself? Maybe I can get a little bit of help, maybe I can get a lot of help. This is figuring out exactly how you'll deploy the technology solutions you're looking at and who's going to do what. From a technical solution perspective. And then finally, the roadmap. Once you understand the levels of effort, you understand how they relate to one another, what integrations we've built, and so on, or you've identified, then you can actually build out a plan. You can build a roadmap that you can execute to. And so those are the three categories of initial consulting engagements that we're talking about today. And perhaps the first thing you're thinking of is, well, what does this mean for me? How do I know which thing I need? How much does this cost, etc.? Certainly we would tell you there's no hard and fast rules. These things are generally linear in nature, meaning you tend to want to understand, of course, your requirements before you actually determine your solution to the requirements. That said, sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes you may have something implemented, and the analysis isn't necessary at the business level. It's necessary at the technical level to get you unstuck, to do a health safety check on your existing implementation, and so on. So there's some flexibility in where you begin, as well as ultimately how you plan to execute the project beyond the analysis stage. So let's look at a little bit about how we deal with sizing these things. We characterize these in a little bit of a format like this. We have a concept of departmental, which is really what we might call small. We have a concept of corporate, something wider than a departmental solution, and then we have a concept of something called enterprise here. And you might think of this in terms of small, medium, and large. What this actually means is, on the departmental side, you might be looking at one product. You might be considering, for example, only Alfresco. You don't have a need for document capture. Or alternatively, you actually have a document capture challenge and you're not looking at a repository technology at this point in time. You might be looking at one location. You might perhaps not have a national or international presence and a need to deploy a solution across multiple locations. Or from an integration perspective, one integration where you're not touching perhaps other systems that exist in your enterprise, such as an ERP or a CRM tool. You might only be integrating to an Active Directory or an LDAP solution for authentication. And then finally, on the departmental side, ultimately limited customization, whether that's in the form of workflow or additional unique customizations to the tools. That's the concept of small. We'll come back in a minute and apply these to the various phases, but the gist of this is these process and discovery analysis buckets, right, or the analysis buckets of process and discovery, technical solution, and roadmap have a different price point that's firm and fixed, applicable to the concepts of departmental, corporate, and enterprise. The corporate level, where this gets interesting perhaps, and I won't rewrite it all, but is multi-product, right, where you're looking at perhaps FSOF and Alfresco working together, multiple locations, and similarly multiple integrations, and perhaps advanced workflow or additional detailed customization would all apply in this bucket of a corporate-sized deployment. Now, of course, you may be thinking to yourself, I have a departmental solution to implement, but I'm actually interested in both the products, or I know I have an office on the East Coast and the West Coast that have to be implemented together, or I know I have complicated workflow. So does that mean I'm actually obligated for a corporate solution? In fact, yes. But what it actually means is you have enough complexity to warrant that. And so these are our labels to help you understand levels of complexity, really, as opposed to thinking perhaps this is system-wide. Now, what happens is if you don't fit into one of these buckets quite easily, realistically, your complexities around workflow, or your complexities around customization, or you've started to integrate to systems and tools that are proprietary in nature, things along those lines that take you out of either departmental and corporate and you don't naturally fit there, turns into a more traditional enterprise offering. And that may apply uniquely across these pieces or not. But the enterprise ultimately truly is what we will tell you is custom. And perhaps that's analogous to the consultative sale, but with a flavor of a pattern that we've applied across this well-known and understood path that we follow here at ZIA. So, natural next question is, what does this cost me? These things open up at the departmental level at an approximate price point of $12,000 plus travel and expenses. If you're past that point and looking at technical solution analysis, that price point is $20,000 plus travel and expenses. And then on the the content roadmap, you're looking at a fixed fee of $8,000. What that means, however, is for the low prices here, you can take individual steps in your process. You can engage with a confident outcome with a fixed cost that helps you understand what you're actually trying to do, and are you headed down a road that actually makes sense in terms of the technology choices you're evaluating. Once that you're comfortable there, look at the technical solution and go ahead and think about how you're going to make that happen, and then finally build a plan. So what that translates to here is a couple of details, right? How do you start? Well, we've talked about that. The process and discovery analysis. Afraid of spending too much money or this being too expensive. You've avoided the unknown of a time materials engagement that could drag forever and engage multiple parts of the business that's unintended. This becomes a fixed fee engagement right away with an appropriately limited cost. And then finally, initial return on investment. Well, the outcome of this is in fact something you can choose to execute, something you can actually do and show and give value on. So for a low barrier cost of entry and a predetermined time frame, you can get these things accomplished very quickly. So what does this actually mean in terms of, how do you know if we're actually telling you something that's valuable and valid? We'll tell you this, ZIA's been around for 11 years. We're experts in this field, been in business for a long time, implementing exactly this path for the duration of our lifespan. We've implemented over 100 alfresco projects successfully, and quite a few in FSOF land as well under our belt at this point. So we have a lot of success in actually deploying these particular products with this particular methodology. And then finally, we actually have done this. Not only is it real, but we have a case study on our website, when you go look up initial consulting engagements, and you can see right here where you're watching the video, a link to a case study with a real customer. There's a semiconductor manufacturer in the Bay Area who we've worked with that went down this road with us, and they had some ideas of what they wanted to do. They had some reasonably clear understanding of their business requirements, and we helped them clarify that. And after clarifying that, we were able to do a detailed technical solution analysis together, collaboratively, to build out a content roadmap that we executed, and within 9 months we're in production, running a fairly complicated deployment for them, integrating to an ERP system, using an enterprise service bus and a reporting technology as well, through that same mechanism, and then a proprietary portal application for their end users. So this is a public-facing implementation for them that followed this process to success. So with that, I'll just say thank you for your time and appreciate it, and give us a ring if you're interested.